She fought fiercely, pushing the price higher without hesitation. But then an unexpected challenger from seat 777 entered the fray. The battle escalated between the two, drawing the attention of the entire room. With every raise, the tension grew. As the bidding reached 40 million, the woman, struggling financially, refused to back down. The man in seat 777 paused, contemplating the situation. The air was thick with anticipation. Who would win this intense auction? The protagonist arrived home late at night, lost in thought about Yulia's situation. However, something was off at the mansion. Servants gathered anxiously at the entrance. Inside, a furious Uriel confronted the protagonist, accusing him of misusing family funds. She revealed the money was meant for the Jaren mine acquisition, but he had spent it on investments. Overwhelmed by frustration, Uriel's emotions erupted, showing both rage and potential as a financial force. Understanding her struggle, the protagonist calmly offered her the head position of the family, shocking her into silence. The protagonist shocked Uriel by offering her the position of head of the family. She was speechless, struggling to believe it. Doubting the truth, she demanded a written vow, but the protagonist instead proposed an oath which carried a deep meaning for mages. If broken, it would result in death or loss of power. Seeing his seriousness, Uriel questioned his sudden decision. The protagonist explained that he wanted to focus on magical research and had tested her capabilities. Uriel, still suspicious, set the succession ceremony for 3 years later on the day of exceptions. Realizing the true worth of the position, she hurried to manage things after wasting 200 million at an auction. Before leaving, she warned him not to take back his words, hinting at lingering doubts. The protagonist understood well that many already saw Uriel as the rightful leader. The protagonist assured Ganesha that they didn't intend to eavesdrop. However, their concern for Uriel was evident. If anyone tried to harm her, they needed Ganesha's support. She reassured them with a gentle smile before disappearing into the night. The protagonist, reflecting on a shocking truth Uriel wasn't related to them by blood, decided to keep it hidden. To them, she would always be a sister. Meanwhile, Ganesha, watching from a rooftop, pondered the protagonist's drastic change. With her team, she vowed to keep a crucial secret. Despite past doubts, she now believed the protagonist had truly changed, realizing their concern for Uriel was genuine. She concluded there was no longer a need to fear them. The protagonist went to the forest behind the mansion to train, seeking a place with better energy. Having mastered basic telekinesis, the next step was beginner telekinesis, which was far more complex. Despite his perfectionist tendencies making it hard to sit on the ground, he brought a chair and started practicing. Using his sharp perception, he overlaid both magic circles in his mind, studying the intricate differences. However, the process was painful, as the mana circuits carved into his body felt like chisels scraping his bones. The exhaustion was overwhelming, but he pushed forward. With his energy drained, he returned to train his body. The training area was far from ordinary, with dangerously high bars and extremely heavy weights. He performed a brutal routine: pull-ups with 100 kilograms weights, rope climbing, and jumping from extreme heights, pushing his body beyond normal limits. Thanks to his attributes, his body endured the pain without breaking, though the struggle was immense. His relentless competitive nature drove him to continuously improve both physically and magically. Later, at the Mage Tower, he sat in his office, deep in thought, as he accessed the mysterious system shop, a place where characters could be enhanced using special currency. The protagonist confidently faces a dangerous foe, knowing their abilities counter the enemy's strength. Though lacking real combat experience, their unique skills make up for it, turning battles into opportunities. Meanwhile, a determined young mage seeks knowledge beyond magic, immersing herself in rare literature. Gaining special access to a prestigious library, she discovers a novel written in an ancient fairy language. Excited by the challenge, she prepares to delve into its mysteries. Along the way, she crosses paths with a professor, reinforcing her growing status. The protagonist stood in the executive library, facing a woman who had entered unauthorized. With a stern expression, he questioned her presence. She claimed she had gotten lost, but when pressed, she admitted she had used an excuse to avoid trouble. Holding a book, she tried to defend herself, but as it floated away from her grasp, she lost balance and fell. Though frustrated, she masked her emotions and watched as the protagonist examined the book. To her shock, he began reading aloud. His voice was unexpectedly smooth, making the words sound more meaningful. She tried to interrupt, insisting she wasn't interested in romance novels, but he dismissed her, returning the book with a warning never to enter again without permission. Embarrassed and humiliated, she left, determined to prove herself. Back home, She analyzed the book, realizing it wasn't a romance novel, but something far more inappropriate. The protagonist saw a woman in torn clothes reaching out for help. As they tried to assist, something struck their leg, making them fall. Unable to move, they saw a sudden attack strike the woman's shoulder, causing her to scream in pain. Struggling, the protagonist gathered their strength and tried to counterattack, only to see a familiar figure, a powerful professor, standing in the shadows, his presence radiating danger. The woman attempted to crawl away, but another attack struck her ankle. The professor coldly claimed she was not human. Overwhelmed, the protagonist questioned him, but his commanding tone silenced them. Suddenly, he lifted them into the air using unseen power, his expression filled with disdain. Before they could react, the professor forcefully hurled them off the mountain, causing them to black out instantly. Meanwhile, the woman's form twisted into something monstrous, a terrifying creature with crimson skin, horns, and eerie, glowing eyes. The professor's rage surged as his bloodline reacted violently to the creature's presence, revealing an ancestral hatred for such beings. As the creature let out a piercing shriek, a powerful battle was about to begin. The protagonists secured their 6 swords, ending the battle just as a determined voice called out from the forest. The chairwoman arrived, surprised to see the demon already defeated. She admired the attack used and questioned if it was her technique, only to receive an indifferent response. Disappointed, she playfully tossed the demon's corpse aside, causing a gruesome mess. As the protagonists descended the mountain, they encountered a group of mages, recalling past interactions with a young mage they regretted treating harshly. A priest appeared, addressing the protagonist with unexpected familiarity. Avoiding unnecessary discussions, the protagonist directed him to the chairwoman. Later, a young mage awoke in the university hospital, confused by the presence of the same priest. He revealed his connection to her father, hinting at deeper knowledge about recent events. The protagonist observed as the newcomers completed their tasks one by one. Among them, a woman stood out, finishing flawlessly and receiving unexpected praise. She relished her victory, knowing another struggled nearby. As time passed, the room emptied until only one remained, completely drained, physically and mentally. Despite trying, the task remained unfinished and exhaustion took over. Blood dripped, frustration grew, and despair set in. Left alone in the darkened hall, regret and failure weighed heavily. Finally, with a deep sigh, she forced herself to leave, her spirit shattered but unwilling to completely surrender. The protagonist, a determined and unwavering individual, exuded confidence in every step. Doubt, regret, and fear had no place in his mind, making him appear superior in the eyes of others. Even when a tragic incident occurred under his command, no one dared to question him except for one person who secretly despised him but couldn't confront him. A true mage, he believed, must remain calm and composed under any circumstance. His words cut deeply, making it clear that without control and discipline, no one could ever reach true greatness. A young woman facing him realized the vast gap between their abilities. Though she wanted to defy him, fear and frustration left her speechless. But instead of breaking, she felt a fire ignite within her. As the protagonist left, his words still lingered. Staring at the ticking clock he left behind, she clenched her teeth, refusing to accept defeat. The protagonist was reluctant about attending a dinner, but Zeit insisted, taking responsibility for the engagement. He admired the protagonist's spirit and left without giving a chance to refuse. Later, as the protagonist left in his car, he wondered if Zeit was hinting at adding a car to the dowry. Meanwhile, at a mansion, Yulia firmly refused to attend the dinner, stating she was busy training knights. Zeit suspected she was upset over the snowflower stone, but Yulia denied it, declaring she would break the engagement if a sword was made for her. Zeit reminded her that Aniclimax loved her, but she remained unconvinced. Despite her family's expectations, Yulia struggled with her feelings. After Zeit left, she trained with her sword, her icy strikes reflecting her inner turmoil. In the northern region of the continent, beyond the reach of empires, lay the Berhurt mountain range. At its peak, the elders governed magical schools across the land, making decisions so powerful that even the floating island mages had to obey. A rare gathering was approaching, signaling an important event. During a secret meeting, the Great Elder discussed the appearance of a dangerous force in the Mountains of Darkness. Since magic was originally created to counter such threats, Berhurt took immediate action. The 12 traditional mage families, along with 8 newly recognized ones, were invited. Among them, the Iliad and Yukline families had long been rivals, but recent developments suggested a fragile peace. Meanwhile, the protagonist received auctioned artifacts, including Rufarin's ring, a masterpiece that enhanced mana recovery and magic power. To ensure safety, he fortified his mansion with high-security Magitech safes and defensive spells from the Mage Tower. With these preparations, he was ready for whatever came next. The protagonist recalled a past engagement before Yulia, a hidden detail within the game's lore. One night, memories of an old conversation about Easter eggs resurfaced, leading him to visit a special place. While lost in thought, a knock interrupted him. His assistant announced the arrival of a guest, only for a large man to push past. The guest, a nobleman, hinted at his interest in the protagonist's wealth. Later, at a prestigious restaurant, Yulia struggled with the discomfort of her formal dress. Sensing her unease, Josephine playfully suggested an extreme way to escape marriage. Yulia was horrified by the joke, reacting with anger and disbelief. Josephine laughed, but Yulia found the remark deeply unsettling, insisting it was no laughing matter. The protagonist arrived at a familiar restaurant, expecting to see Yulia, but was surprised by the presence of a dangerous woman. Though they had never met in person, the protagonist knew her well from past observations. The woman's piercing words made the situation tense, but leaving wasn't an option. Facing her now was better than an unexpected confrontation later. Taking a seat, the protagonist noticed Yulia's conflicted expression. Meanwhile, Zait, Yulia's brother, entered, making lighthearted comments before suddenly bringing up the long-delayed wedding. Yulia tried to speak, but Zait silenced her, insisting the decision was for the elders. A strange red aura briefly appeared, revealing the hidden nature of the woman sitting across from him. She masked her intentions well, but the protagonist recognized her as a ruthless and powerful figure. She was deeply connected to the shadows and had the ability to destroy anyone, including the protagonist. The protagonist admitted to not being the noble person others expected, but instead a typical individual with flaws. He then asked the woman if she wanted to become a guardian knight, a role requiring complete independence from family. Shocked by his insight, she hesitated but could not deny it. The protagonist suggested keeping their engagement as a shield to help her achieve her goal, assuring her they wouldn't marry unless she wished. When she questioned his intentions, he simply asked for a smile, leaving her flustered and speechless. The protagonist quietly observed the conversation, intrigued by the discussion. Although being called persistent annoyed her slightly, she ultimately found it amusing. She had always planned to eliminate the man, forming countless strategies, but today she decided to postpone her plan after sensing his sincerity. She then questioned her brother about his thoughts on the man. He responded with a deep metaphor, implying that while the man might not be perfect, he was still a critical piece in their world. He then recalled their father's unjust death, blaming the capital's nobles for valuing power over honor. His anger burned deeply, vowing vengeance one day. As they spoke, the woman entered with the man, signaling a shift in their relationship. The brother, noticing the change, lightened his tone and invited them to join him for a drink. Together, they left, the man deliberately walking behind, allowing the others to lead. The protagonist stood firm as a professor questioned the legitimacy of the club. Despite the mockery from noble students, the protagonist confidently explained that it was an officially approved club. The professor, assuming it was a mistake, demanded to know which professor had given approval. Just as the tension rose, a powerful professor appeared, shocking everyone by revealing he was the one who approved it. The arrogant professor panicked and quickly changed his stance, pretending to be supportive. The watching nobles, realizing their plan had failed, scattered in fear. The continent's knight orders are divided into three main categories. The first is controlled by the royal families, consisting of the most skilled knights and scholars specializing in handling dangerous creatures and dungeons. The second belongs to noble families who have vast lands and face frequent monster threats. The third category consists of privately established knight orders, which make up over half of all knight forces. These private groups take on dangerous missions like hunting creatures and conquering dungeons, relying on rewards and sponsorships for funding. However, forming a new knight order is difficult due to strict regulations. At the headquarters of one such private knight order, a woman reviewed financial reports and felt relieved. Their missions had been successful and they were operating at a surplus. Just as she was savoring the moment, a senior knight entered with news. A major corporation had requested an escort for their express train, a high-tech transport system navigating dangerous mountain routes. The woman remained composed despite the tension surrounding this request. A skilled knight was specifically chosen for the mission due to his outstanding performance in VIP protection. Though young and lacking formal university training, his dedication and exceptional skills had earned him recognition among top knights. Even a highly respected figure had acknowledged his rare, old-fashioned knightly spirit. Despite some concerns, the woman approved his selection, believing it would strengthen their reputation. As discussions continued, the senior knight hesitated, sensing something unusual about her calmness regarding the mission. Could it be that something had changed within her? The protagonist had been in a somber mood as he arrived at the cemetery. He had taken a car ride, carrying a notebook, flowers, and a pen, lost in thought about the overwhelming tasks assigned to him. Meanwhile, a young woman had arrived earlier, bringing flowers to her mother's grave. She spoke softly, updating her about her younger brother and venting about the heavy workload given by a strict professor. Although she had grown used to the loss, these visits still brought her a sense of relief. As she turned to leave, she noticed the protagonist standing in front of a grave, lost in deep emotions. A knight watched from a distance, though he remained unaware of her presence. His sorrow was evident as he knelt before the stone, lost in thought. The woman accidentally made a noise, revealing her presence, and the protagonist turned sharply, his eyes red from tears. She assured him she wasn't spying, and though he seemed startled, he quickly composed himself. They decided to leave together, but the protagonist, still shaken, lost his sense of direction. The woman pointed the way, but before they could move, a hooded figure suddenly appeared, blocking their path. The protagonist narrowed his eyes, demanding to know who the stranger was. The protagonist stood among the police as a senior officer approached, impressed by the earlier display of skill. The officer offered to further punish the restrained criminal, but the protagonist declined. Using a refined technique, the protagonist manipulated the earth, creating metallic strands to bind the captive. The police marveled at the precision, noting that their usual restraints wouldn't work due to the criminal's ability to nullify abilities. The protagonist, already aware of this, advised them to leave the bindings as they were. Before leaving, the protagonist received a respectful salute from the officers. As the night deepened, a message appeared, confirming an increase in the protagonist's abilities due to the recent battle. It was a process of surpassing previous limits, akin to improving an engine with higher quality fuel. Real combat proved more valuable than endless practice. A familiar voice called out, offering well wishes, but the protagonist, lost in thought, merely nodded. Memories surfaced of a tragic past, a painful loss shared with someone dear. The thought of taking a life in a place filled with such memories felt unbearable. Meanwhile, in a grand mansion, a powerful figure learned of the events. His daughter, who had been saved, showed little emotion, but she subtly manipulated the conversation to gain permission for an upcoming prestigious gathering. Her father hesitated, knowing the dangers of the location, yet he struggled to refuse her request. The lecture hall fell into silence as the senior professor halted the class, his voice dripping with disappointment. His mastery of telekinesis was overwhelming, making the debutante mages feel small in comparison. The weight of his magic crushed their hopes, making them question their own abilities. Whispers of frustration and awe filled the room. Some resented his harsh teaching, while others marveled at his immense power and wealth. Among them, one student had managed to endure the test. She sat exhausted, barely able to move, but inside, she felt something change. The struggle against the professor's magic had unlocked something deep within her, a realization, a breakthrough. She described it as pushing against an immovable force until something inside her snapped into place. Her words caught the attention of the others. If she, who had always been at the bottom, could achieve this, then perhaps they could too. Excitement and determination spread through the students, but not all welcomed her growth. Some, especially those from noble families, found it infuriating. They whispered rumors that she had received secret guidance from the professor, unable to accept her sudden progress. One of them clenched their fists, unable to bear the injustice of seeing the lowest-ranked student surpass expectations. Meanwhile, another voice cut through the tension, demanding the commoners clean up, a reminder that not everyone was ready to accept change.